Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar about Swedish urban planning, a process to integrate many values. My name is Lydia Parthini and I'm a visit and program manager at Smart City Sweden. And today I will be your moderator. Today we will hear from 3 different Swedish authorities and from region of Umeå about Swedish urban planning and how Sweden has put a big focus on a holistic, integrated process to achieve livable and attractive cities. Together with speakers, we will discuss trends and solutions and show examples of livable and multifunctional streets from Sweden. So let's begin. Smart City Sweden. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome to our webinar on Swedish urban planning, a process to integrate many values, as mentioned. Smart City Sweden is a state-funded initiative, a state assignment for smart and sustainable city solutions from Sweden. We welcome delegations from all over the world who are interested in investing in Swedish solutions. On our website, we showcase best practice within smart and sustainable city solutions from Sweden, as well as companies who are ready to export the solutions. Smart City Sweden is financed by the government, coordinated by the Swedish Energy Agency, and managed by IVL, Swedish Environmental Research Institute. Smart City Sweden demonstrates solutions within 5 focus areas. Through the platform, Smart City Sweden coordinates incoming visits with one or several of the 5 focus areas that are energy, climate and environment, mobility, digitalisation, urban planning and social sustainability from all around Sweden. Smart City Sweden has over 700 companies in our network that are ready to take their solutions to international markets. We have over 120 best practices work as inspiration and that also can be visited. 6 offices all over Sweden welcome delegations physically as well as digitally. We cooperate with 8 government agencies to support with their expertise, as you can see today. Smart City Sweden is with you all the way. We can help to match you with experts and companies in your area of interest. And the visit we will help you to the next step. Whether it is to a new meeting to learn more about your needs or a pre-study in your local context. So please visit our website, smartcitysweden.com. Thank you. And now on to our webinar. So, from vision to attractive and livable city. Our first speakers of today, Anneli Mortensson and Olof Schultz. Before I leave the floor to you, urban planning is a complex process. So how do we achieve a good result? Olof and Anneli, you're working as architect and landscape architect at the national level in Sweden. So please let us know, what is your experience? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lydia, and hello to everyone. Creating livable cities and towns needs a lot of talent, capacity and fantasy, since it's all about organizing a multiple of diversity. With the right mindset, you may create cities with a wonderful variety of architecture and public spaces.
Yeah, and I agree. It is very important that you have a strong vision as a guide in the planning process. so that the city does not develop in a random way, but that it becomes an attractive and functional city, rich in experiences.
Creating a vision is not just a democratic putting together of stakeholders' opinions. On the other hand, you really should include stakeholders' opinions in the process. So how do you combine and balance a lot of interests with integrity? You really need to have a visionary and experienced process leader with big ears to the ground.
So when you invite people to discuss a development project, it is good to present overall goals and conditions. But at the same time, the concept should not have been developed too far. There needs to be flexibility and many options to be able to involve the ideas of different stakeholders as well.
When stakeholders, such as property owners, inhabitants, organizations, invest their time and energy in a development process, they need to see progress and results to keep up their commitment. And since urban development often is a very long-lasting process, you need to get small immediate successes along the way as well. Make small things happen, and the greater things will be achieved as well.
Yes, transparency in the process is really important, not least to avoid misunderstandings and counterproductive rumors. There are many stakeholders who need to work together for things to happen and to be able to enable synergy effects through the investments that are made.
So, first, create the seed of a vision which attracts stakeholders' involvement, and then steadily lead the transparent process showing progress in practice.
Working with redesign of communities require a long-term agenda and patience. One challenge is to coordinate the redesign of public spaces with other urban construction works. It is not uncommon for the municipality, property owners, and other stakeholders to have different time horizons for their work. Many different needs and interests need to be managed together, such as transport, urban greenery, trade, and service.
You highlight multifunctionality and the multiple of interests. There are really a lot of stakeholders, functions, and interests to keep together.
And this is so important to get more inclusive cities. By involving stakeholders from the beginning, you can also achieve good and lasting management of our cities. Those who live and work in a place should be able to feel belonging and pride, and they do so when they get the chance to influence. Architecture is a unifying force for initiative, participation, co-creation, innovation, and new thinking, if used correctly and as an enabler.
Architecture. Architecture is both function and form, and variation is natural due to different use. But it's also an invitation to your eye, to your mind, to your feelings. Architecture is like a theater scene to our lives. It has an impact on our behavior. A broad variety of human-scale architecture makes your city really livable. And variation in size and form also often creates a forgiving urban pattern, which conceals less fortunate building designs, at least when those are a dominating townscape. Of course, you would like to achieve good architecture in general. To stimulate developers contracting good architects, you may need some guidelines in your local plan. But on the other hand, you also need to avoid unnecessary regulations, which may hinder artistic creativity. The balance in between these conditions is really tricky and requires very skilled people in the city administration to handle planning and building permits. You may call this soft power. On one side, open-minded to developers and architects' proposals. On the other hand, experienced and equipped enough not to be manipulated or misled. Buildings are seen from distance, when passing by at street level and as close-ups when you approach or entrance. The closer you come to the building, the more details you should be able to detect if it is good architecture. At close distance, the quality of materials and detailed solutions are of great importance. And good materials, it's not the same as exclusive or expensive materials, but materials suitable to the local climate and used in a skillful way.
Another important focus in the urban planning are the public spaces. These are very important for making this society inclusive and healthy. And what makes a city if not the street life? A square is much more than an open space, and a city's network of streets controls more than just the flow of traffic. Architecture and design affect our daily lives, how we experience ourselves and each other, how we meet, collaborate, and live our lives together. The public space in a city can provide conditions for everyone to meet, regardless of socioeconomic and cultural background. It is therefore important that various forms of meeting places are created in new districts, as well in the management of existing ones. The public places vary in their character and use. It can be squares for large events or small pocket parks to settle down for a while. Marketplaces, street with tree-lined walks, or the bus square. These outdoor places are extension of our homes, our green living rooms, which we have seen not least during the pandemic. They need to stimulate a variety of activities for different needs and interests, but also offer places for relaxation. The public places play an important role for inclusion and integration. How the society is planned and shaped, how safe it is experienced, and how easily you can reach various functions affects people's opportunities to be included and active in a society. A place also needs to be planned so that it allows and encourages physical activity to create a society with conditions for good health for all its inhabitants.
And how do you work in practice to achieve these values?
Well, in Sweden, we invest in accessibility for pedestrians and cyclists, both in terms of mobility for work and education and for leisure. It is, for instance, important that children safely and securely can explore the surroundings and gradually take more and more part of a city. Being able to cycle to school is very important and has shown better learning results in school. Another central issue in urban planning in Sweden today is the reconstruction of major roads in the city. They have been laid out with a focus on fast transport. These wide traffic zones are now being transformed into lively city streets where more functions can be accommodated within the same area. The urban environment and the unprotected road users are given priority over the accessibility of vehicle traffic. Lower speeds result in reduced noise and thus nicer urban spaces. The transformation creates new opportunities for increased development along the way, but also provides space for urban greenery. Together, street spaces and other public spaces create an urban network that enables ecosystem services, mobility, and social activities. Urban greenery contributes to quality of life, improves public health, and makes cities more resilient to a changing climate. And we will hear more about ecosystem services and nature-based solutions later on today.
Actually, the concept itself sounds rather simple to me. Just create a vision and keep on working.
And working with architecture and public spaces can have an important unifying effect between different actors and at the same time offer multifunctional solutions. With the help of architecture, we can change our everyday lives, and maybe we can change the world too. And back to you, Lydia.
Thank you. Excellent, Anneli and Olof from Boverket, which is the National Board of Housing, Building and Planning. Thank you for sharing your vision to an attractive and livable city created through clever, and great design and architecture. Just to remind you that questions will be held a little bit later on into the program. So now I will have the pleasure to introduce our next speaker. A more sustainable and effective community developing process with the benefits of digitization. Please, we welcome Malin Klintborg, Commission Leader at Lantmäteriet, which is the Swedish Mapping, Cadastral and Registration Authority. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Let's see if we can share a screen. There we go. Unfortunately, I'm not home alone today, so there might be some disruption from sounds from playing children and stuff. So I hope we can do this without disruption, but we'll see what happens. My name is Malin Klintborg, and I'm the Commission Leader at Lantmäteriet for this governmental task that I will now tell you about. Try to get this. So where are we going? What is this all about? And today, when it comes to geographical information and geodata, this is where we are. We have gone from the flat maps where we have the land use, the buildings, the parcels and everything in a flat map. That was what we needed when we went into war and when we needed to know who owned what in order to be able to pay taxes. That's really the start of all the maps. From that, we went through and gone to the multi-dimension maps where we put the information in different layers in order to be able to handle them with the help of digitization. And we are almost there in many countries where we handle all the information as different layers. We have the water in one, we have the height level in one, and so forth. But when we go further into digitalization, that is not enough. We are now trying to cross the boundary and go into the digital twin of reality, in which we can make decisions and do simulations. If you go back to what Boverket was just talking about, in order to create all those fantastic views, you need to be able to do simulations and have that in your decision making to see what will this end up with. And in order to do that, we need to go fully into 4D data. We need the data in 3D to start with, and we need it comprehensive over time. And we need to be able to make data from sensors all over the cities to be able to talk to the regional geodata so we know where things are. We need the digital twin of the city and of the environment. And that is quite a trick to do. But why do we need this national standardized process? Well, today in Sweden, we are just about where this picture is. We have a lot of digital solutions out in the municipalities and in the different districts of Sweden, but they are not fit together. We do not have a standard for the entire country. And if we see to Europe or we see to the world, it is about the same when it comes to mapping and geodata. We need to do this standardized and we need to do it digital in order to get an increased sustainability. When we can use this data in a good way, we can reuse it and we can do those simulations. We can make sure that what we build for the future will also be good for the future. We also will get an increased legal certainty in the decisions. We will know that everyone is using the correct data and we use the same data from having it from the source of the data instead of in different copies everywhere. We will also get a higher efficiency in this process. And if we do together and we use the possibilities of digitalization, it will cost us less money. And least but not last, we talk a lot about how some people get outside of the society when we go into digitalization. But I think we should talk even more about how we get an increased accessibility and democracy when using the digital possibilities in this process. There are lots of people who get a more who easier gets to the facts you need in your tasks with your the authority when you have it in a digital way. What would the benefits be if we get all the information that is within this process of building houses or making good societies, if we could make that just reachable for everyone, if we could just make that all the data that is already there could be used by everyone? That would save up about 20 to 40 billion Swedish crowns per year. If we on top of that put that we can also use the digital ways of doing this process, this will be much, much more. But this is just the benefits in order to get hold on the data. The data is the new gold. How could we make a system where everyone could get hold of the data and use the data and we can start working more digital? It all starts with the information, and it needs to be uniformed, it needs to be nationally available and reusable in digital form. As I said in the beginning, we don't have the standardized information today. Every municipality makes their own way of doing this. And we need to standardize it on a much higher level in order to be able to use. We also need to make the data more usable digital by thinking about how this data should be used through the entire life process of the data, not only for creating it for the decision we are making right now. Once we have the data in place, we can work with the process and making it digital. And use all those digital services that is out there. And we should also bring the principle of always keeping the dialogue digital, and which means stop sending digital documents as if they were analog, start collecting from the database or from the sources. Make the sources reusable for everyone. And once we're through those steps, the automation is made possible and we can implement it where we need. That's where the AI and everything gets in. But working with AI today, when we are still lacking of the uniform information and also the best quality that we need, won't get us all the way. The strategic goal for 2027 is to have a digitally uninterrupted information process to support the efficient and sustainable increased housing construction. So we want the information in this process to be available for everyone, and it should be standardized. And until 2027, we will start with two sets right now. We are working with detailed development plan and building information, which will get us quite a bit ahead. And after that, we will see it will be based on the government's ambition for how many more themes of data we will be able to work with. We will also see the information as uniform, nationally available and reusable for thematic methods. And that the dialogue is possible digitally and is based on all actors reading the information from commonly accessible data. And therefore, we are now building this platform from where everyone should be able to read the data and know that this is the latest updated data that I should use in my process. And the data should be standardized, and it should be in the phase of where you can use it for your automatic decisions, for example. It should have all the attributes you need for the entire process. So to make an example, For example, we are now working with a new building specification. We are sharing buildings today in Sweden, but what we will do now is we will go from the 2D to 3D, and we will go from the level of detail 1 to level of detail 3, this here. So it's very easy to go. We go from the squared boxes to the houses in the map. And this information will be adapted for the physical building's life cycle management through the plan and construction process, which means that we will have much more attributes to the information object than we had before. It is also adapted to requirements and needs from, for example, the Swedish tax agency, Statistics of Sweden, and National Board of Housing, in order to be able to read the data from here instead of the municipalities sending this in a very analog way to those authorities today. And we have also cleared the connections and attributes in the BIM models based on needs in building permit management. So we will have a seamless way of using data within the BIM model and this building model. And for the detailed plans, what are they designed for? Well, they are, in addition for being able to search and find the current detailed plans, there will be services to be able to identify which land use is permitted within an area. You will have a basis for testing a building permit. So if you take the building and you put it on this digital plan, you should be able to make parts of the decision with an automatic testing. You should have it as a basis for the establishment of new businesses and buildings. You can read the rules for what you can do with the ground. You will have the basis for testing property division. You will identify unused building rights, and you can have it as a basis for statistics in the same way as for buildings. And you will have support for the country administrative board's consultation portal and other consultation solutions. Through this process, there are several times where you have the dialogue with people living in the area or with other authorities, and to be able to share all the data needed in those meetings is really putting the democracy process in line. We have, for example, in some municipalities, they have those buses with 3D views of what they are going to build, going into the areas where people live, to be able to show and have the dialogue about what we are going to do. So what will be nationally accessible? Well, from this detailed plan, it is the detailed plan, which is the map view, but also the description of the plan, the reference, and also the decision act. Those are mandatory, and for optional to send in and to make reachable or accessible is also you can put through the basic map, and you can have other planning documentation. For example, if you have noise assessment, nature inventory, and others. So that when you go to your detailed plan, you have all of the information needed for being able to take the information further in the process. And you will be able to put this detailed plan into the system from when it's started and all the way until it's completed. So when working in the process, you don't have to send the digital plans between different parts in your organization or to stakeholders. You can just send a mail through my messages and say, you can now reach the information you need on this address, and that's where you can pick it up, which is making us work more digital than before. We are in this work also having some international benchmarking and cooperation. We are, for example, working together with Finland, where they are also building and have built a platform for this kind of information, and they are now looking into how to make their solution for the digital detailed plans. We also have Holland as a where we work closely together, and they also have this kind of information platform, and they have all those countries working with the same type of idea of platform, but we still have our different ways of how to make the solutions regarding from how our governments are working, or how the national laws are built, and if you have open data or not, and so forth. Also Denmark, the data structure they have and the platform, and Norway also their data structure goes back way back, and the platform they have built. And also we are in cooperation, or we are working together with Serbia in another project, where they are really interested in both the data structure, the solution for the platform, and the detailed plans themselves. That was about what I was going to share with you today, but I think you need to, I want to put this question to you. Why would this be important to you? And I would say that the short answer is that digitalization doesn't stop at the border. We are now forever and ever connected together. Over now to you, Lydia. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Malin Klintberg, for sharing this with us. What is this all about? Flat maps to multi-dimensions. Such a captivating introduction to a very interesting presentation. Thank you. About strategic goals, digital twins, national and standardized processes, and increased capacity through digitalization. We will continue discussing this during our panel discussion later on. So stay with us. Now, we have Social Progress Innovation Sweden, SPIS, innovation platform for a sustainable and attractive city. With us is Carina Askan, development strategist at the region of Umeå. Please, Carina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lydia. So I would like to welcome you to my town of Umeå. Just to zoom in a bit where we are. It's a city in the north of Sweden, quite small, but the biggest in North Sweden. It's a young and progressive city, average age of 38, and a third of the inhabitants are students. Today I will talk a bit about our innovation platform. Really, it is a way of working. I will just give you a short insight. This picture shows what we want to go from. It doesn't make sense so much in English, but it means we don't want to work in silos. In Swedish, we talk about rain pipes. We want to go to this kind of rain pipe. Very, very easy in theory, but difficult in practice. And it also visualizes very much what a smart city is, how to integrate different perspectives and different parts of the city, different actors. The difficulty is to work together, really. So why do we call it Social Progress Innovation Sweden then? It has its, it builds upon the European Social Progress Index. It's a measure of social, societal development and quality of life. This map shows the darker the green, the higher you score on this index. As you can see, Sweden and the Scandinavian countries are dark green. We score high on this, and this is, of course, something that we want to both discover what it is and also enhance much more. Social progress, social sustainability, really it's opportunity for people. For us, as other cities also, of course, inclusion is a vital part of our development strategy. It's about social sustainability. The thing about social sustainability is that it's so hard to define. It's also hard to measure, but we have made an attempt at least. We have produced a large socioeconomic analysis, social urban space analysis, and together with our extensive urban dialogue, we have been talking to thousands of people in the city, both physical and digitally, to know about their everyday life, what's happening in the neighborhood. It focuses on the people and how they live. One of the parameters in the dialogue has been to visualize the amount of social capital that we have in different areas. And social capital, it's that's the networks between people, the shared norms and the values that people have in an area. And this can also be an indicator for social sustainability. A very important factor for this is also the identity of the area. The people kind of know their area, they know a little bit who's living there, they know who to talk to, they interact with each other in the daily lives. It has been really important during the pandemic that people help out in the neighborhood. But in short, it's good that people socialize with each other. It's good for the health, it's good for people. But that's quite funny. Looking at this picture, you have in social media, there are loads of funny memes about Swedish people that we are not so sociable, maybe. This is like a normal bus stop, and it's, even if it's a joke, it's quite true. And this is what we have as a starting point when we were to design a new bus stop in Umeå. It's quite common that people stand, if someone's standing under the roof in the bus stop, the others coming there, they stand outside and they keep distance. In planning our smart city here, we have our public transport. It's fully electric bus fleet. And one of the small issues with this was we are in the north, it's cold in the winter. So we lose heat from the bus in the boarding procedure when people get off and on. So our initial idea was to create some kind of enclosed area where people go in heated area where people go in and then board the bus in order not to lose the heat from the bus. But we were working together with people and researchers, designers. We had quite an extensive pre-study looking how people act before. And something that I think was so important why we choose not to go with this solution with an enclosed area was that many young women stated that it would not feel so secure to go into this enclosed area if someone's standing there. It's like, especially if a strange man is standing there, it doesn't feel safe somehow. So the end product became this. This is the bus stop it's called Station of Being. You have the link at the bottom there, you can watch a movie about it. But the whole idea here is that you can just be in this bus stop. You have personal pods that you can cuddle into, kind of, and they can turn around from the wind or the rain or something like that. And the bus stop tells people when the bus is coming or approaching. Different lines have different musical sounds and different colors on the lamps when they are inspired by the Nordic lights. And something that became a bit of a surprise with these personal pods We created them because we thought the people wanted their personal space. If you looked at that first joke pictures that I showed, the people want to stand a bit with space in between. These pods made people feel a bit more safe and secure in their own space, which meant also what we have seen is that people turn to each other and they start to talk to each other, and much more than before, people don't stay outside the bus stop like they did before. So this is just a small example of what we as a city or planners can do to create these maybe unexpected public meeting places in the everyday life. It's just a little thing, but something that makes people recognize who else is living in the area waiting for the bus in the morning. Another small example that we have is called Friso. It's I said before that inclusion is such an important part of our planning strategy, but inclusion doesn't mean inclusion by everyone at all times. The target group for this was young women, which meant that we excluded all other target groups in the dialogues for the creation of this. We saw that young women, teenage women, they were the ones that were usually not part of dialogues, and they didn't say their meaning in our dialogues. So they were the only ones that could say what they wanted to create. And they wanted a place free from expectations, fears, and insecurity, where everyone feels welcome. And this comes from, for example, they said they can hang out in a football field, for example, just sunbathing. And then a group of people comes there and say, you have to move because we're going to play football now. Leave. This is a football field. They wanted a place where you can do just what you want to do. It doesn't have to mean anything. So this park called Friso was created. It's like a swing. They can connect their pods with music. They can sit there, and it's these swings are also created for someone with a height of 165, which is the average height of a woman in Sweden. And it has showed us how important it is to find all the target groups when we create these meeting places. It doesn't mean that we have to create a skate park or an activity place. It's we need to find meeting places in the ordinary, in the everyday life. You don't always have to do something when you meet and interact or have social interactions with others. So with that, I'm saying thank you from me, and back to you, Lydia.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Carina. Thank you for welcoming us to Umeå. Young and progressive, a student city, innovations, designers, and researchers. Innovation platform going from a very straight drawing pipes to pipes with multiple ways across different authorities and companies and communities. Inclusion dialogues, creating new ways to integrate. Such an inspiring project that has been created with personal pods and Friso. Thank you very much. Again, I will say this and repeat, there will be discussions and questions with the speakers later on in the program. So, our next speaker of today multifunctional, nature-based solutions in urban areas. We are welcoming Anki Weibel, Policy Advisor, Urban Planning Unit, Sustainable Society Department at the Swedish EPA. Welcome, Anki, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me see, did I share my screen? I kind of forgot that maybe. I just...
Your screen is not shared as yet.
Sorry.
No problem. Did you find the button?
Yes.
Perfect.
Maybe you can see it now?
Yes.
Great. So, so I have the honor to speak to you today about the nature-based solution that is a tool for climate adaptation and other societal challenges. We have had, during the last 2 years, actually, quite intense work on nature-based solution and guideline. And the main focus of this guideline has been climate adaptation. But as nature-based solutions are multifunctional, they can actually be used for whatever type of societal challenges that you might face in your surrounding setting, city, or maybe it could be even a larger entity. Just very short, the outline of what I would like to tell you today looks something like this. I will introduce you to the double crisis. Then I will try to explain to you what nature-based solution is. I will give you some examples and just very, very briefly tell you about the guideline, and then finally send some take-home messages for you to bring home. But the double crisis, what's that? What do I mean with that? First, we have the crisis of the changing climate. And I think that I don't need to tell you about that. We are all aware of that. It's happening now. It's nothing that will happen in the future, but it will be more intense in the future. But already today, we have challenges that goes with the rising temperature of the earth. And here we see a map of Sweden, and you can do a map of your country, and I'm sure that you will pinpoint certain issues that happens to you. For example, we have problems in Sweden with both dry areas, heat waves that gives us fires, for example, but we also have the opposite. We have too much water, too heavy rainfalls that will create erosion and flooding and things like that, both in the inland and at the coast. So just because we're one country, we don't have one problem. It's many problems that comes together, but it is a crisis. We need to address the climate crisis. And we also have this other crisis about biodiversity. I'm sure that many of you have heard of this as well. Last year and the year before that, the UN platform, intergovernmental platform on biodiversity and ecosystem services has produced some reports telling us about the situation about biodiversity and ecosystem services. And you see a graveyard here. Many species actually is going extinct, and the scenarios for the future also is that it doesn't look too good. And why is that important to us, the biodiversity crisis? Because nature and biodiversity and ecosystem services actually is the foundation for human well-being and health. And as we have listening to the other speakers today, we're talking about that in the urban setting as well. Even though we are kind of far away from nature, nature is in the city as well, and we want to be there, and it makes us feel better to have green areas and places to meet in the cities as well. but we also have so many other challenges in the urban areas. We have challenges with pollution, with noise. The pandemic now has shown how important it is to have green areas to meet outside, of course, in the city, but also in the surroundings when people are staying at home for their vacation, with a staycation. We've seen in Sweden that the opportunity for outdoor recreation close to the vicinity of where you live is very important when you choose which city or where in the city you want to live. And also we need to build houses for people, for the growing population, which means that the pressure on the area in the city is high. So the green areas is becoming more scarce, and we have the schoolyards, for example. If you look only at that, we see it's too little green for the people to, for the school children to have a creative learning and recreation area. So we have multiple challenges in the society, and therefore we need to have smart tools that can address these challenges at the same time. We don't need tens of solutions. We need one solution. Well, maybe that is to ask for too much, but we need smart tools, and that's where the nature-based solutions come into the picture. Because if we plan good in advance, we can get so many more added values from the nature-based solutions. So we can reach several of the goals that we have nationally, as we have the Swedish environmental goals here at ICONS, but also we have the global goals. And I'm sure that whatever country that you come from listening to this seminar, you will have your own goals about biodiversity, about climate, about healthy cities, or whatever it can be, water, oceans. We need to address all these challenges in a smart way. So nature-based solutions, what is it? It's a multifunctional and cost-effective measures to address different societal challenges by working with nature, that is to working through protection, enhancements, or creation of ecosystems. And they are benefiting both biodiversity and human well-being. And this nature-based solution concepts has been born in different entities or in different settings all over the world. And this definition is based on the definition of IUCN and also about the Convention on Biological Diversity, and also from the European Union. And there are kind of, if you go to the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, they don't really speak about nature-based solutions. They speak about ecosystem-based approaches, but actually it's just a different way of wording the same key aspect, that you should work with nature to find multifunctional solutions that are cost-effective. So let's talk a little bit about these multifunctional solutions. Here you can see different nature-based solutions. It could be a tree, it could be a park, it could be a rain garden, it could be a green roof. And actually it doesn't really matter if it's a tree or a rain garden or a green roof. They contribute to several values. They contribute to clean the air, they can reduce noise, they can raise the property value of the houses, they can regulate the temperature, they can regulate the water flow, they can purify the water, they can be areas to meet other people, to support recreation and health aspects of people living in the city. So it's all the green solutions have aspects of these multifunctionalities, and then of course you can architect the solution so that you even get more value or higher value from the solution. But it is the multifunctionality that is the key of the nature-based solution. And some examples here in Ängelholm, it was a problem with flooding and speeding in a street where people in a residential area where people were living. So the solution was to build the street bumps, but it was designed as small rain basins, and the focus was biodiversity here. So not only is the water going in here, but the plants that they were planted here was pollinator-friendly plants, and so the add-on effects was biodiversity, and also it creates a green area. You can see it's quite green anyway, but it could be the same in a more city center area as well, of course. Here's another example in Vellinge in southern part of Sweden, where they had problems with flooding in a schoolyard. So they rebuilt the whole schoolyard, and they create the schoolyard as an amphitheater. It's quite interesting, and they are using this for nature pedagogics, and it is used for recreation area. But also when it's heavily rainfall, this area is a rain garden. And here we have outside Stockholm, Järfälla. They are building this new area for people to live and work in, and they have some challenge with purification of the water from this new built area, and they also wanted to secure the recreation value because it's quite a highly dense populated area. The solution here was that they saved, conserved, and designed the park from the already existing trees and green infrastructure that was there. And the purification of the water, then they make the water meander like a natural flow, creating a very nice place for biodiversity and also recreation area for kids and bird watching area. So and the water retention, of course, is an add-on effect in this area. So the guideline, we have this guideline, it's in Swedish, as we wanted to have it in a Swedish setting. I will give you on the next slide some English take home. But this is in Swedish, and it's actually the first national guide for nature-based solution in Sweden. It covers the whole country, all different ecosystem types, from urban to forest to agriculture to coast. And it's the starting point for the work in Sweden, even though a lot of things is already happening, like in the cities. We have a lot of experiences from doing these nature-based solutions. We have the definition and a stepwise guideline that have biodiversity and human safeguards, so we should not be any maladaptive solutions that we are doing. It's a lot of examples, and I think that this is a little pity that it's in Swedish for the moment, but if you are interested in a particular issue, then you should dive into the guideline to look at some examples, and then see if you can visit to see the solution from Malmö, for example, or Järfälla, the one that I show you on an example here. If you would like to have some guideline in English, then I would recommend you to look into the CBD voluntary guideline number 93, as you can see on the picture, or the IUCN Global Standard for Nature-Based Solution. Or depending on what you're working with, the European Union has also some guidelines that you can get some inspiration from. You can see that the stepwise procedure that we have in the Swedish guideline actually is building on a mixture of these, but mainly from the Convention on Biological Diversity on their work. Yes, so to sum up, we cannot solve the climate crisis without addressing biodiversity and vice versa. And the nature-based solution can do this. We can address those two crises together. and solve several other crises or challenges simultaneously if we plan carefully from the beginning. The important key here is to make this added value visible. Usually you have problem with flooding and then you just look at the flooding, but you miss that if you create a rain garden, you get added value from biodiversity and recreational spaces, for example, and purification of the water. You need to show these added values. And the nature-based solutions, they give values to all citizens, even if the citizens is not using the park, for example. They don't want to be in the park. They don't want to meet people in the park. They don't want to run in the park. They don't want to have a picnic there. But the park will help to lower the temperature in heat waves. And that will contribute, of course, to the citizen living in the park. And the nature-based solutions is what we used to say a no-regret solution. So even if the climate scenario will not be as dramatic as you can see now, if you look at it, the worst case scenario, you will still have the added value of the nature-based solutions. You don't get the complete flooding as you thought would happen, but you still will get a very nice area for people to meet in and biodiversity, etc. So it's a no-regret solutions, smart solutions. So I would like to take that message with you home today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anki. Thank you for sharing nature-based solutions, NBS. A tool of climate adaptation and other social challenges that are multifunctional and can be used in everyone's context. Double crisis, you said, sounds very serious, which it is. Climate, heat, water shortage, floods. We don't have only one problem in one country. We have a lot of the times, several of these to be addressed. We talk about biodiversity, foundation of well-being. Very interesting, multiple challenges in the society and how we can tackle them. With smart tools, one solution with smart tools. You mentioned again, nature-based solutions. Working with the nature to find creative and cost-effective solutions, multifunctional solutions. Thank you for sharing the creative solutions around Sweden, which was very interesting to see. And again, to our delegates and people listening to us and taking part of this webinar, please do not hesitate to contact us and to get in contact with all our experts presenting with us today. Now, it's not over yet. We have our panel discussion. And we will start by asking the questions to the speakers that has been coming in to us today, and the speakers will give us the answers. I will start with asking a question which leads, what is the role of social capital in smart city urban planning? And I will give the word to Karina Askan, please. Did you get the question?
Definitely. Yeah, I would say that it's kind of a not forgotten role, but it's not as recognized as I think it should be. In smart city planning, we tend to focus too much on the technical solutions and the economical aspects, but sustainability has 3 legs, as we know, and the social capital is such an important part of the everyday lives of people. And something that I didn't mention is that living in an area with high social capital is really health promoting also. You have better health when you live there, and this is especially true for women. So I would say that this is something that we should try to focus much more on, as I think I said it also, that, I mean, most of the time the technical solutions we can solve. Anyway, it's not so difficult. We have solutions. If we just get the problem, someone can solve it for us. But this is something that we need to pay much more attention to.
Yes, I can see our speakers are nodding in. Thank you for answering the question, Carina. Otherwise, I will continue to another question for you, which is what qualities are demanded from a process leader? And I would like to address that question to Boverket. It's Anneli or Olof, if you would like to answer, please.
Thank you, Lydia. Olof here. I would like to start, and I think that Anneli might add perspectives. I think clear communication is very important to avoid misunderstandings. A process leader must be very have a great capacity to communicate, and also a genuine interest in listening to people. So the communication in both ways. Capacity to negotiate, but also integrity and capacity to structurize and to connect to the vision and to explain. So it's actually a multi-talented person you are looking for. Good luck.
Excellent, Olof. Very good. Now we have Anneli who would like to add in as well. Please, Anneli.
Well, I also see that process leader needs a lot of qualities, of course, and the leader also needs the capacity to translate the different interests and different needs from the actors into a good holistic solution. So it's not only putting together different aspects to a solution, but just creating this holistic solution. That is very important.
Thank you, Anneli. As we can see, it isn't an easy task, as you said, Olof, what is required from a process leader. I would also maybe, if I could add, somebody who is very diplomatic could actually lead this task. Thank you very much. I will continue. I have another question here for you, which is, how can the success of the government commission be promoted, favored by Smart City Sweden? And I think this is a question that might go to Malin Klintborg from Lantmäteriet. Is that an answer that you could take, Malin? Answer. You're muted. Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
The most common question these days, can you hear me? Can you see me? Well, I think that the Smart City is an innovation program from the government, just as well as the tasks that we are working with. And we also have the Smart Built Environment, which also works with all these questions about how should we make our societies work together. And I think it's really important that all three of those stick together and make sure that all the solutions we are looking into are actually able to go hand by hand as well. Because most things we do end up somewhere in an authority process, and whatever we create, it needs to be able to also fit into that world. And I think that is something important to carry on, because we very easily, as Carina was into, the technique is very easy. We can do so many things, but in order to make this work in the society where we're living, we need to make it go hand by hand. So innovation needs to have a ground in the regulations and the authorities' processes.
Excellent. Thank you, Malin. So remember, working hand by hand to fit in. I will continue. As you will see here, I go to the Swedish EPA, I think. Does a nature-based solution automatically generate multifunctionality? Anki, the floor is yours to answer the question.
Yes, thank you. In one way, some multifunctionality always comes with the nature-based solutions. I mean, if you plant trees in the city, you get lower temperature, and you also provide space for biodiversity, for example. But if you plant exotic trees, we cannot support the biodiversity that we have in that area, and maybe we would like to plant trees because we have some beetles that wants to be on a Swedish oak tree or whatever it might be. So if we plan and choose and design, we can get more multifunctionality in advance, but I would say a little bit you will get anyway, but with careful planning you will get even more.
Perfect. So biodiversity in different areas, planning and careful planning and choosing. Thank you. Thank you very much, Anki. Next question. Is it important for local government to have a vision? Olof, what do you say?
Definitely. You know, politicians, they must be committed. They must understand. They must have an idea. They must also keep on working to implement an idea for many, many years. And actually, the vision must be shared between almost all parties active in the local politics. Because if you have an election and then you are heading in another direction, it's not good if you are interrupting long-term societal development projects. So actually vision, shared vision at the political level is very important. But then you must also have some, of course, options. A vision is not detailed, it's an overarching idea where we are going. And then you must leave to many stakeholders to interact, to fill this vision with reality.
Thank you. Over to you, Anneli, please.
The vision is not only important for the local government itself or for the citizens, it also provides support for the investors to know what the long-term goals are in the actual municipality. So by having a vision, the local government can also attract more developers to the city. So that's another gain that you get by being very by having this clear vision of where you want to go.
Very good, thank you. So to sum up, I think I could say must be committed, have an idea to work many years and to be shared within local politics, therefore to support for the investors in the municipality and also to attract investors by sharing the visions and the goals within the municipality. Would that be a summarizing? Thank you. I will continue. Next question. What are main surprises or main learnings from your work with the social sustainability dialogues? And that question would go, I think, would be aimed to you, Carina Askan, at the region of Umeå, please.
Yes, I think that there was lots of surprises and lots of learnings in this dialogue because it was so big. But the main our main learning, something that I also want to share with everyone else, is to do this together with researchers, because they are able to come up with the questions that we as city planners would never think of, in order to figure out this difficult indicator of social sustainability. It's so difficult to define, but also how interested others are in this, and how engaged the people became in this material that we have collected. And what made me also really, really happy is how interested the estate developers are in this material. They really want to create social sustainability in their building projects, and but they don't have the knowledge how to do it, or the insights to it. So this is something that I just, please everyone, do it, because it's going to happen.
Excellent. Thank you. Lots of learnings and surprises. But to do this together with researchers that come up with the right questions, to involve also the state developers that are happy, and that brings, again, as everyone is mentioning, an important area, social sustainability. Thank you, Carina. I will continue, and I will go over to how you can make the added values of nature-based solutions visible. And that is for you, Anki.
Yes, thank you. And I would like to maybe pick up some ideas from what we heard earlier about participation and social inclusiveness in the process. When you talk about nature-based solutions, and the example that I just gave of a tree and biodiversity, it's very green, but we have so many other values, and in the process it's important to include the people and other stakeholders so that they can be a part of the solution, because maybe it's not only what tree species that you choose to plant, but if you include young women, as you did, Carina, in Umeå, they can add their values and interests in the area, so that you can create something that they feel put added value in their lives, and create social meeting areas, for example. It's perfectly, you should think of all the three criteria of the sustainability dimension. And that brings me into this answer. What is, how do you make the added value visible? Sometimes you do that by calculating in economical terms, but for the most of the times, you don't do it that way. Maybe you do it in an ecosystem service analysis to see, how you can regulate the temperature and water flows, etc. But also just to make these social values visible, just to say that this is an area for sport, or this is an area for social interactions, or this is an area for urban gardening. You don't need to put a price on that. You just need to mention it in your analysis to make it visible, because otherwise it falls out from the calculation. And the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency also have these guidelines of how to make values visible with ecosystem service analysis and so on and so forth. So there are many tools that you can use to do that. But just by talking about it and put it down on a paper, it counts as well. It doesn't have to be so difficult.
Thank you, Anki. Participation and inclusion to be a part of the solution, to make values visible. Thank you. Next question. what advice would you give to other cities that might be inspired to start up a similar process? And that is, of course, to the region of Umeå. Of course, others can have an answer to this as well, but I will direct the question to you, Carina, to start with, please.
Yeah, it's a simple advice, just start. But we did it. We did the dialogue with the whole city at the same time. Usually when you do this kind of dialogues, you do it in maybe an area where you want to raise the standards of social sustainability or something. But we did this dialogue also in areas that are considered being the nice areas, and we have super valuable insights from this also. It's not it doesn't have to be the way that in the good areas, if you call them that, have the higher social capital than other areas. So there are so many parts of this this process that we did, and like I said, it was a really big one, but you don't have to do it all at the same time and do it as big as we did. But I could advise just to start in the smaller area or something, and if anyone is interested in all the dialogues that we have, of course they are in Swedish, but all the answers or the ideas or all the dialogues that we had, they are published on our Open Data City platform. So it's open to everyone, and yeah, but again, just start.
Thank you, Carina. I will only say one word here: start. We've now had an hour and a half talking about this very interesting and very important subject. Excellent having you here, the speakers, and I would like to thank you for being here with us today, sharing your work and expertise with us, not only with me, but of course with our delegation, with the people listening in. And I will once again would like to raise and say, please do, after you have listened to this webinar, do not hesitate to take contact with us at Smart City Sweden, and we can then put you in contact with the speakers, the authorities, or the region of Umeå, or also, of course, you're welcome to take a direct contact with the speakers of today. So I will sum this up by just saying once again, thank you, and thank you to our listeners.